So welcome to the amp room at Pro Guitar Shop. It's not very big, like as I was saying, it's about a walk-in closet size, but I've managed to squeeze everything I can in here. And it's been pretty much the same setup for a very long time. Obviously you could see some remnants of the old Soho. This is the 212 cab. And I actually prefer running the Deluxe Reverb reissue into this 212. And it's not so much as to make the 112 sound larger than life. It's actually, you know, because I'm using two mics, I'm trying to get the most realistic sound possible. Because sometimes you put a mic in front of something, it could sound huge when you're in the room, and then you go back and you listen to it, and it's like, where'd all the bottom end go, you know? So that's kind of the goal. It's not really to make it, you know, it's to be closer to reality. So the top mic here is the Sennheiser 609, which is like, you know, kind of a, you know, it's close to the SM57 in terms of, you know, having the top end that I need. And then the bottom one is the, you know, the famous Royer 121, which has been the main mic forever at PGS. And the reason we got that one is, again, it just had a way of making it sound. I mean, we record a test and then we play it through the monitors, and it just sounded like the amp was in the room. And that was like the first time I really heard a ribbon mic, and that was a great suggestion from the only other employee at the time, Jamie Wolfert, and you know, he's a audio engineer, so that was some great advice. And like I was saying, that Royer is, it picks up on both sides, so I know there's not a lot of space in here, but whatever kind of room sound I'm getting in here, it's getting picked up as well. So between those two mics and you know, the 212, I feel that it's going to be, you know, very true to how the pedal or whatever gear I'm playing sounds. Okay, so this is the Andy side of things. You know, after a while, I started bringing some stuff in from my own collection. The top one is it's a you know, a 68 Plexi clone from Metropolis back when they were doing kits. So somebody, not myself, built this. But it's all really great stuff, you know, point to point, and it's just made for that old Brown sound, you know. It's, you know, I have an older Marshall, but I keep that at home, so, you know, just keep it safe. And actually, both of these were tweaked. Well, this is a trainer, I should say, first of all. I think it's YGM3A.
How many watts is it?
So it's like 80, I think it's 80 watts, and it's basically like a twin killer. So it runs EL34s instead of 6L6s. So there's 4 of those. So I kind of just wanted something with a lot more headroom, but still it's very clean. You could go up, you know, almost 75%, it stays very clean, but it's got kind of that, you know, a little bit of a Marshall influence, but still great spring reverb and tremolo, and it's just like a good alternative if I have a fuzz that's kind of, you know, kind of giving the Deluxe a little bit, you know, a run for its money. So this is great, you know, for just staying clean and making sure the headroom is there. So, you know, so you can see what the pedal is doing, not so much, you know, how it affects the amp. And then both of these were tweaked by my buddy Brian Sowers, who's in Portland too. He's a phenomenal amp tech, and just a couple of things I wanted done, he was able to just easily tweak. I mean, the guy's a mad scientist, and I'm really lucky to know him in Portland. So then I just got this 412 is from Mojo Tone, actually. We started doing some demos recently for those guys, and pickups, and pickups mainly. And I saw that they were doing these cabs, and I was like, okay, I need to get me one of these vintage looking cabs. So it's their speakers too. It's kind of like their version of the vintage 30. And it's just a great match for any head I put into it. So, and then I'll really use these just for kind of special occasions. You know, sometimes we're doing a lot of demos for one single pedal, so we're trying to find a new way to kind of show what it can do. Like the Saucy Box is a great example. So I did the clean demo, and so we're going to try it through a dirty amp now. And so, and I just can't do a Marshall into a 212. It has to be 412. So that's a bit of what's going on over here. All right, so here's mainly the shop guitars I've been using for quite some time. all of them are pretty much just off-the-shelf guitars, except for we were talking about some stuff that my dad was making. So this is that Gilmore sort of tribute, and you can see he went so far as to get that Gilmore strap, and mainly he's a Gibson style builder. So this was kind of just a kind of a fun project to do, and he didn't have a problem relicking it because he didn't actually build the thing from scratch. So, but for the most part, it's this Les Paul, and it's a traditional model from 2008. Again, it wasn't a custom shop or anything, and I've actually toyed around with some pickups in here. These are the Doyle coils that I did a demo for, and they just ended up staying in there. So, but for a long time I had the Duncan Alnico 2 Pros in there, and just kind of low output pickups that aren't really gonna color the sound too much. And really a lot of the recently I've been trying to find a way to keep guitars in tune a lot better, and I've kind of stumbled upon the Graphtec stuff, because they were all in the Schecters that we were demoing for years, and it never really dawned on me that I should be putting them on my guitars. And it's just something, it's just so obvious, but I think it's, the string getting stuck in the nut is like one of my biggest pet peeves. And so to have that, which is like, I think they call it self-lubricating. So that's a big help. And I eventually wanted just to replace them all with that Graphtec.
Stock on it?
These are actually, these are actually Graphtecs too. They're the locking tuners, but for a while it was just the stock tuners. And then, we got like this Hagstrom, which kind of was left over from when we were a Hagstrom dealer. And I actually like it for detuned stuff because it's a 25.5-inch scale. So it kind of keeps tighter tension when you go down to like C or C sharp for Iommi riffs and stuff like that. And it's just bone stock. I haven't even put a treble bleed in there, which I normally would, to kind of brighten it up. But just play it as is. And there's always a telly in there. This is kind of a recent demo guitar. Again, just nothing too expensive, just to kind of give people a good reference on how stuff sounds. I've upgraded the tuners to locking, but they're really nothing super pricey or anything.
It's like Graphtec as well.
It should be, but it's not. All right, so I had to go grab this guy because it hasn't been used recently, but this is probably one of the most famous guitars, the G&L legacy, in PGS at least. It's not the original one, but it's definitely probably the second one, because we were a G&L dealer for a long time, and I definitely wanted to hang on to one of these. And it's just it's a bare bones model. It has the cool thing, which I never saw until I was looking at these legacies, is they have the roll off for bass and treble. So you get to that neck pickup, and if something's too woofy, you just roll down the low end. It's so simple, but not too many people doing that. And like I was saying, I've been trying different nut solutions. This one happens to be a Irvana to kind of help with the cowboy chords, and takes rid of the sharp notes on the first few frets. So I'm just always experimenting, always trying to find ways to keep the guitar in tune. And you've probably seen me attempt bass on many demos. I've actually been playing bass just as long as I've been playing guitar, and that just comes from me and my drummer friend just trying to sound like a band, and so I just overdub on my 4-track some bass lines. So this one is actually kind of a newer one I got from the guys at Reverend are awesome, and they just let me have one of their prototype Mike Watt basses that was used at NAMM for a little bit, and it's awesome. It's a short scale, and it's got some just really cool specs on there you don't see on a bass, and it's actually I think the ideal bass for guitar players. Being a shorter scale, it's got a little bit lighter tension, and just nice fat sound with humbuckers. So this is definitely one I'd use on a lot of backing tracks. So this is where you guys are used to seeing me, usually sitting on a drum throne, not this awesome red chair. But I keep the pedal board very basic. It's actually not even a pedal board. It's really meant just to showcase one pedal at a time. And I threw my old Blues Breaker on there just to kind of show you the setup with, I mean, very basic lighting. And I usually have a tuner because I'm always tuning. and the sex drive, which is mainly off, and it's just a buffer just to kind of help keep things, keep the sound from degrading because it's going out of here into the small amp room. And sometimes it's on to kind of regain some high end, but again, it's like always just trying to make the pedals sound honest, so it's usually just off. And in the early days, I was actually in that little room with the amp, and I don't recommend it. I always recommend earplugs if you're going to do that, but we kind of went back to a studio environment by just miking it up over there, and then I just have some, basic studio monitors here where I could listen in stereo, actually, which is really helpful for any stereo delay pedal I'm doing or reverb. And then I could kind of get a nice, idea of how it's going to end up sounding to you guys anyway, since it's going to come out of monitors in the end. So this is where the magic happens, and I'm not permitted to show you what's behind the curtain because that's a trade secret right there. All right, so this is the side you never get to see. After I'm done kind of jamming in the black room, I come back and edit the video. So the first thing is the mic preamps, for those mics in the amp room. They're both universal audio. The 610 is the one that we've had ever since the beginning with that Royer mic. That was just kind of like a great combination. Not very fancy, but definitely high quality. So the sound is true, to what's being recorded. And then recently we got this other universal audio 710 for the 57 or whatever other mic, the 609. And so those just come straight into a interface, and we've had this one since the beginning too. It's just a RME Fireface 400, and which have great preamps on their own, and I use the one preamp for my recording, speaking in the room, but for the most part it's the other preamps that are really doing the brunt of the work. And I'm not really overdriving these preamps, they're very, it's a very gentle influence, and it's just really to kind of keep the digital side of things from you really having an influence, and just to kind of keep things natural.
And what speakers are you monitoring with?
I got just some active, I think they're MR8 Mackie. I'm not really particular. I think these have a lot of bass, which I can't, isn't always a great thing. Everyone's talking about the flat, NS10s. They've talked about those for years, but for a while I was mixing on a couple of different speaker setups just to kind of make sure it was going to sound good, on a phone or on a TV or something like that. But I've kind of done it long enough where I know what to expect, even though these are really bass heavy. I know that, maybe don't go too heavy on, certain frequencies.
Oh, do you want to mention the Morley real quick?
Well, that's just kind of a thing I found, but yeah, it's a cool old flanger. It's got that old Redicon chip in there. I have the bigger version, the Flanger Pro, with that big, gigantic chrome deal, and that's like one of my favorite flangers because it just gets crazy. And I thought, well, it'd be kind of cool to find something that would be better on a board. So I grabbed this guy, and it's everything you want it to be. It's real lush. You can get that kind of Andy Summers, sounds that you think are chorus, but it's really a flanger. So, and it's like really heavy too. You could bust somebody up with this thing. So like I mentioned, I wanted a program that does audio and video in one, just to make it easy. I could just grab the memory card from the camera, and the audio has already been recording the 2 tracks from the 2 mics from the amp room, and just sync them up. And it's not really anything fancy editing wise, but it doesn't have to be. It's just a demonstration of what the gear does. And
What program is that?
it's Sony Vegas. Yeah. So it's not the newest, latest, greatest creation, but it keeps me from trying to do too much, I think. And I get a lot of questions on the backing tracks, and it's just kind of recently I've been exploring that avenue. And for a while I was using just kind of some drum loops, and I'd record a bass, but it's very time consuming to do. So I kind of stumbled upon this thing where you find those MIDI tracks that have been on the internet as long as the internet has been around, and they just sound corny, because it's that general MIDI synthesizer sound. But I was working on some other drum loops using this program, Contact, to trigger drum samples. And I thought, well, what if I just drag one of those MIDI, songs, the goofy MIDI songs, into Cubase, and lo and behold, it just expanded into the tracks, and I could isolate the bass and drums and trigger better drum samples and trigger more realistic bass sounds. So I'll show you how I do that. So you can see the issue with just using that raw. And so you bring it into something like Cubase that can replace those synthesized sounds with actual samples, like the drum samples, and then you could isolate your tracks. So I just usually take the bass and drums, and then all of a sudden you have a really great sounding backing track. And then you can see there's this bass plugin I have here, virtual bass. And it usually doesn't stop there. I have to get in to the drum track, and so these dashes here are your hi-hats, so you could kind of change closed, open them up just to change the intensity. And that's usually where these MIDI tracks fail, is they're very linear. They don't, they weren't made to have all this extra, automation or anything. So, I change cymbals here and there, bass drum hits, but it's a whole lot quicker, believe it or not, than just to come up with something, scratch. So.
All right, guys, and that is a look of Andy's recording setup here at PGS.
Thanks for coming in. This is a great opportunity to show how I've been doing things, and it's also a great opportunity for me to let you guys know that I'm going to still be continuing this method, just over now with a whole new community at Reverb. So I'm just happy to be moving along and doing the same things for everyone in the guitar community.
I've been working a little bit with Reverb myself, and I'm really happy, Andy, that you're going to be continuing to put out great demos. And thank you guys again for watching and sticking around.
Thank you.